Hey guys. Yes, my name is Herr, and I was named such because my parents liked the name Hans, but they didn't want it to sound like they were naming me after the locally famous Hans Herr, so somehow they ended up with Herr, which people know all around the world, but don't worry, Mom and Dad, I love you. My story, while it revolves around New Year's Eve, not New Year's Eve, just New Year's, the resolution was not something that I did to personally better myself. Instead, this story is about a completely unmerited dedication to obtaining a free piece of furniture. So the year after I graduated high school, I spent a gap year in Hong Kong with 3 other Americans. We were there for about 8 months and did some volunteer work with some local churches and stuff like that. And we lived in a 2-story townhouse, and on the roof was a flat balcony area with an overhang. So it was a really nice place to hang out, and so we were trying to figure out how we could get some furniture up there to make it a little bit of a nicer place. So that's set piece 1. Set piece 2 is that on the side of the building was a tin roof sort of lean-to hut where a really old, jolly, and spunky old Chinese man lived. And we would see each other every now and then. We would wave and smile, but that was about it because he didn't know a word of English, and we only knew useless phrases like, "Where is Boundary Street?" and "I want 2 cups of beer." And none of us were drinkers, but that's what the language CD taught us, so that's what we knew. So anyway, we were tipped off that around Chinese New Year's, which is mid-February, it's a big traditional in with the new, out with the old season. So since Hong Kong is one of the most dense cities in the world, people have small apartments, so they don't really have space to store their old things. So you find perfectly good furniture out of the dumpster. So we were keeping an eye out for that. And eventually we're walking home one evening and saw a couch there at the dumpster, went over, took a look. It wasn't the nicest thing ever, but it was in good condition. So we thought, all right, let's take this back, get it on the roof. So to give you an example of how little forethought went into this, it was only after creating the spectacle of 4 American late teenagers, earlier 20ers, carrying a sofa through a bunch of apartment buildings down a busy street, in the middle of Hong Kong. Only after we got back to our house was when we realized that our staircases were about this wide, and there was no way it was going to fit up there. So at this point, the other people I was with were thinking, oh, okay, I guess this doesn't work. But I was like, no, we are going to get this thing on the roof. And so I started looking, and there was a balcony on the front part of the building. So I was like, we have to get it up 2 stories, but if we can get it up to there, then all we have to do is repeat the process and get it up again. And it's not going to be that hard. So we ran around, looked for any rope. We came up with a couple of very short pieces of rope, not very helpful, and eventually had a little step ladder set up. And we're carrying this thing up a step ladder just to get it high enough that the person on the balcony could reach over and just grab the short piece of rope. It was beyond sort of common sense safety procedures, but eventually we did get it up to the first balcony, and at which point I realized that my theory of just duplicating what we'd done the first time was a little bit off, because not only was the balcony very narrow, but there was also a ledge hanging over the front of the building, which made getting it up and over that a lot harder. So the plan was then to take it around the side of the building and then pull it up and over the side where there was no ledge. And I went around and found we needed more rope. So I found a piece of plastic-coated wire to make a rope extension. I thought, well, that's pretty strong, that'll work. So fast forward a little bit, I'm on the roof and leaning down around. We push the couch sort of around the side of the building, and I start to pull. I get back away from the railing, and I'm pulling and starting to get up, and all of a sudden it becomes really, really easy to pull. And it didn't take me long to figure out that the wire had snapped. It was not indeed a good weight-bearing option. And it really probably only fell 4 or 5 feet, but in my mind, I froze. I had time to run to the balcony and look over before it fell. That's how it happened in my mind. And so it hits this tin roof, makes the loudest kabang I had heard. It probably wasn't, but it seemed that way. Tilts over, does the same thing again, and we all just sort of sit there what have we done? So then in this lean-to shack off the side of our building, we hear some movement. We're thinking, oh no, like that old man, he has no idea what's going on. And he comes walking out, looking all around like had no idea what was going on. And there we have a bunch of American kids sitting, one on the roof, one down on the bottom, one on the balcony, just sort of standing there like, oops. And he looks up and looks down at the couch, and he starts talking in Chinese, like pointing the couch to the roof and making gestures. We're like, yeah, trying to get that up there. He walks back inside of his house and reemerges moments later with a basket full of rope, the very thing that we needed the whole time. So eventually, despite communication being a very difficult process, he did help us to get it all the way onto the roof. We then had our couch on the roof there, and that is how we ended up learning to know our old Chinese neighbor, though it was a very unconventional and unintentional method.